Hello again, everyone. My name is Teresa Conroy-Roth, and you are watching the latest episode of Lightning Leadership. With me today is someone I really think you need to know. This is Bianka Shaw, and she has over 20 plus years of business consulting and organizational change management, business transformation, leadership roles underneath her belt. And she joins me today. Hello, Bianka.
Hello, Teresa. How are you?
I'm good. So, as we kick things off, right, we talk about business transformation, we talk about business processing, business mapping, end user adoption. What are you seeing are some of the pitfalls that are taking place and taking shape in that business transformation space?
Yeah, so as we're getting more and more engaged with these business transformation programs, right, organizations are really looking at what does the future of my function, for example, look like, right? Whether we're talking about supply chain, manufacturing, finance, and how do we really transform the business to where they are today and where we really need them to get to the next, not even like 1 year, 2 years, but 5 or 10 years down the road. And that's becoming more and more of a major milestone of our organizations and kind of the trajectory of where they're going, especially with like AI and
Yeah.
all the new concepts that are being introduced into the marketplace today. But as we're looking at that and the longer strategy that we're trying to help organizations implement, it does really come down to kind of more from a tactical level. What are the new technology stacks that we're trying to implement to get more streamlined from a, tech debt and making sure that we have the right process in place so that our organization can mature as fast as kind of the technology is allowing it to. And so as we're doing these transformation programs, specifically around, for example, ERP transformations, one of the things that we're finding as we're getting engaged is really the lack of probably business process knowledge, which is interesting, right? So a lot of times, our system integrators are coming in who do fantastic jobs designing, looking at requirements, scoping out kind of what that design looks like, best practices for that technology ERP, but really aren't looking at what the future state end-to-end business process needs to look like because it's outside of just the core ERP space, right? So for the Oracle or SAP, there's a whole slew of end-to-end processes and components that make up a overall solution, not just the one technology. So our teams really come in and help organizations talk about and think through what are all the other things that your organization is doing around a specific technology so that they understand how to use it in the future state. And so that's becoming really important because roles are changing, right? Job functions need to change. Maybe the way that we're talking to each other and communicating now changes, not only for our internal stakeholders, externally as well. And so that's becoming really prevalent for us, is making sure as we're going into engagements, like, do you really understand your future state process? And then know how's your organization going to adopt to that?
That's
Right.
great. And that's absolutely critical, right? From a communication standpoint, from a training standpoint, you have to kind of do the homework, set the stage, and then, communicate and make sure that you do have that end user adoption. And that's not only on the business process, but it incorporates organizational change management in there as well.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that we like to talk through is like the physical digital model, right? And we think about that, our integrators are really looking at the digital side, right? Like the entire technology space around how the organization needs to mature and work in the future. But the physical side is really important, right? So we talked about business process, but also, is your distribution center, is your site, is everything set up the way it needs to be set up so that you can work and adopt those new processes you're trying to implement? Do you have all the right RF guns set up? Do you have all the other infrastructure, the business readiness side of it set up to make sure you're successful? And what comes with business readiness is the user adoption side. So
But you're looking at it from a holistic point of view, right? You have to look at everything and then narrow into the pockets, right, of where you're going to need, or the structure categories, right, of where you're going to need to change.
Exactly. And especially on like the really high impact. So when you're thinking about OCM, one of the key components is doing a change impact assessment, right? And so one of the things that we do is Okay, we've got the change impact assessment. What do you do with that information? It's critical that especially for business critical and operational critical activities, how do you take those change impacts and create process narratives and create user adoption programs and do day in the life scenarios so everyone end to end, because a lot of times you're going between one functional area and another. That's why it's an integrated business process. And how do they all work together, right? From an order management, right? Your customer service reps to your manufacturing, to your distribution warehouse facility. How are they all operating and communicating in that future state world to make sure we can still ship product out the door? And if we get a inquiry back from the customer, how do we help our customer service reps look that up, right? So what does that entire end-to-end chain look like? It's really important that we're starting to educate and make sure that they understand the new process in addition to the new system. That's always important for us.
Well, when you look at business advisory, you're also identifying the risks, right? And oftentimes you're doing all of these things while the plane's still moving, right?
Yep.
Where you're still trying to get product out the door. It might not be the most efficient way, right? But you're literally trying to make changes on the fly and help people adapt as quickly as possible so that the business interruptions don't occur.
Exactly. And part of our methodology is really about the proactiveness of what we do from a change adoption perspective. And that's why it's important with the day in the lives and simulating some of that environment before you even go live, right? And running the parallel path so that when we do go live, we want it to be more of a non-event because everyone's used to some of those activities that might take place. And kind of, it's like, we can't always be happy path, right? Not everything will work the way that we think it will. So what are all those other scenarios that might happen? And making sure we run through those is really critical from our perspective. It's an 80-20 rule, right? You're never going to go through every single scenario. Some will come up. Some only will come up once a year. But it's making sure we're hitting the big ticket items, especially when we're thinking about business operations. What are those critical areas that are, I would say, are most organizations' special sauce to run the business?
Yes.
And we want to make sure is critically looked at and evaluated and adopted prior to go live.
That's awesome. So we talked about those pitfalls, right, in business transformation. Tell me a little bit about AI. I mean, that seems to be the hot buzzword, and so many people and so many companies that haven't necessarily embraced it by now. It's not going away, right? It's only going to become more prominent for both the manufacturing space as well as the in digital space in particular as well. Can you share some ideas on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of talk about AI, of course, right? And I think organizations are becoming more mature on how they can leverage AI as part of their day-to-day kind of ways of working, but also how we can leverage it within the technologies that we're using and making sure that we're going quicker and faster to market, right? So there's lots of areas that AI is getting incorporated into the way we have to operate. From a business and a user perspective, it's really important that we set some governance around AI. How do we want people to use AI, right? So organizations that are thinking about using AI and implementing different options within their organization, what's the governance around AI that you want to set? What are we going to allow individuals to do, go create on their own, any agents or chatbots or anything like that? How do we need to make sure they're creating them in the right way, but still applicable to what we need to do day in and day out, and have the right governance structure and model around it, train people, demystify what AI means, right? People are going to start at different areas of the change curve. Some might really adopt it quickly, and some people it might take a little bit longer. And so really making sure we're putting the right structure in place for that. And then
I love the concept of demystification, right?
Exactly.
Because they're really I can take an email, right? And I can take an email and I can copy it, throw it into an AI and say, okay, rewrite for senior level executive engagement, right? And it will completely and totally change the email or the style or the tone based on whatever parameters I tell it to. And so for me, right, I use it on a daily basis for, and there's some great examples that you can use. And you don't necessarily have to jump into an AI or a bot. But I know Oracle and SAP and Microsoft are all, reimagining, if you will, what their software does, specifically as it relates to AI. And so if you're not ahead of the curve, you're going to be behind the curve. But how do you make the folks that feel, right, that they may have 20 to 30 years of experience, and this is all coming at them so quickly?
Exactly. And it's about chunking it up a little bit, right? So what are those specific use cases as well that are going to be applicable for each of your different business departments? How are they all going to use AI differently? What are the skill sets that we need to make sure our teams have in order to adopt AI as well? That's going to be a big differentiator too, because we've got individuals at different skill levels today. And as we introduce AI, a lot of those tasks might be already integrated into the software functionality that's being rolled out. If that's the case, how do we repurpose and upskill our current staff to make sure that now they're becoming more potentially analytical, or looking at information in a different way, because AI is going to be able to help generate a lot of the more mundane tasks they might have been doing previously. And so we really do have to reimagine that process. And right now we are helping organizations, understand not only from an internal perspective, how to govern it properly, what those use cases are that they can use just general AI today, but how the softwares and the other solutions they have, how those are rapidly changing, so that we're making sure our organization is ready for it and that our user base is upskilled to support it.
Awesome. Bianka Shaw, thank you so much for coming on. I learn something new every time we talk, so I so appreciate you. For those of us that are watching on LinkedIn or on YouTube, please like and share. For those interested in learning more about Bianka, please feel free to reach out to her on LinkedIn. And with that, I will say thank you again, and wishing you a fabulous day.